Hello, everybody. So this starts week 7. Getting very near the end here. Got just a couple things to go over today. And well, I guess really for the rest of our class periods, they'll be a little bit on the shorter side because I figure y'all could probably use that time to work on projects. We've already hit almost all our learning objectives. I think there's one left that we'll look at on Wednesday, maybe today. But again, I wanted to keep the class a little bit on the shorter side so that y'all have time, plenty of time to work on the projects with the groups, things like that. Oh, somebody just disappeared. I'm sure who was here and then left. Hopefully they're not having internet trouble. Oh, there it is. So what's on here today? I do have a question. I was talking to the disability support services coordinator this morning, and she come across this new thing. They've been making dyslexic friendly fonts, and there's some that work in coding languages now. Would anybody be willing to volunteer to give that a try? Also do the links and stuff. You just email me. But yeah, it's supposed to somehow does the letters don't get mixed up or something for dyslexic people. And it works with Python. I don't know what all languages it works with, but Python's on the language. Most everybody in the SDEV program has seen some Python along the way. So if anybody's willing to volunteer to give that a try, see what it's like to work with write your code in those letters, see if it causes any extra headache or anything like that, or if anybody has a little bit of dyslexia, that would be great because then you could say you could give feedback on whether it's actually working or not. But if you're interested in that, let me know. Wanted to look at VR stuff, which wasn't on our objectives, so it's here in week 7 and 8 where we're looking at odds and ends because there is a very high demand for small VR game projects, pretty much everywhere. Really, it's museums. Museums want virtual recreations instead of just like something sitting on a shelf that people can look at. They want museums really like having those virtual recreations, so there's work for that with this skill set pretty much everywhere. And some people really like it. It can be a fun way to play games. So you might just want to see it. I wanted to include it somewhere. And then the other thing, I guess, to start off with here, I talked about last week about as we get near the end of the semester, kind of lightening the load a little. This probably seemed off because with Ivy Online, where things are delivered entirely asynchronously, there's certain time requirements we're looking for, which usually those get backed off a little when we bring the Ivy Online shell and use it in a classroom. But that didn't this time because the reason I'm using that shell is to check for typos before it goes live for Ivy Online. So needed to check all the typos, which is done. It's already been, yeah. I didn't really get a chance to check 7 and 8 because it had to be downloaded and get set up for the, last week was the deadline on that. So the typo checking is over and there's still quite a bit to do, but a very small number of assignments left. So what I come up with was maybe we could lighten the requirements on these assignments a little. And well, it's the group project, and the groups have already started meeting and talking, and the final project. And at this point, you should have already started working on your final. Well, probably not finished yet, but have something going with it. So I was thinking if we eased up on the requirements, that might make it a little bit easier of a workload for you all this last couple of weeks. because, yeah, some of the stuff that would normally be removed in the classroom didn't get removed this time with the IB online job. So if we look at those assignments. So yeah, there's a kind of that general description. It's like the other homework assignments. The one level, a simple cut thing to introduce the story, and then uh, the cut thing for the end to wrap up the story. But really, following some of these things, and I do use rubrics when I'm writing, so I just go through and just check the boxes. I guess that's included. Yeah, I'm a big fan of what's called the ungrading movement, trying to do away with that whole A, B, C, D, F thing that uh, ranks people and does not accurately portray student movement and stuff. So really, it's like a checklist. Is the thing included or not? What do we have here? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 of those. So as your group comes together, right now there's 7 categories on the rubric. I was thinking half, but I thought there was an even number. But let's say you only need to do 4 of them for the group. Well, that one, and you all can choose which 4. So depending on what your plan is, maybe you don't have a good cut scene or something, so you could drop that one. You haven't found a spot to put a hinge joint in. That should be pretty easy. A hinge joint is just one that swings. So something like a door could fill that in. But just choose 4 of those, and your group can choose which 4, so you can basically drop a couple things out of there, right? If you don't have a good spot for an NPC in your character or in your storyline, you could drop that NPC requirement. But I'll leave it up to you. Just make sure there's at least four boxes I can check on there, and you'll get all the points for the thing. And when you go to submit it, make sure you tell me which 4 you drop, or which 3 criteria you drop. Does that make sense to everybody? Hopefully that'll make that a little bit easier. Any questions about that? And then we'll also do something similar on the final assignment. Project. Where's your rubric for it? It has a longer checklist, but let's see how many are on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So let's go with 7 of those. So again, you can choose which ones to drop, and when you submit it, just tell me which ones you're dropping. Like maybe you're running out of time at the end, and then you want to skip that software build and just send me the project instead of like the release files, like you would have the HTML build or something. Or maybe you're going all with collisions and want to skip triggers and things that happen at a distance. You're having trouble working that in your game. So choose which 4 of those criteria to pull off. And then when you submit it, just tell me which 4 that you took off there. Or if you're already been working on that for weeks and almost have it finished or something and already have all this stuff, more is always acceptable. But hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier as we go into these last couple weeks. And then our class time is going to be shorter. So you should have this blocked off on your schedule, and that'll give a couple more. We'll probably just go over one odds and ends thing each day. Navigation is the one we haven't seen yet, so planning on doing that Wednesday. So again, it'll probably only go like the first hour, hour and 15 minutes up to about a break, and then that leaves us almost 2 hours every day to work on the projects. At a time when I will just be sitting by my computer in case anybody has any questions and can hop back on the Zoom call and address and answer questions immediately. Yeah, and project-based courses, when we get near the end, time is a lot more, time to work on the projects is a lot more valuable. Any questions about that requirements change? Because yeah, waiting till, I guess, last week to drop them to decide that needed, to decide for something that needed done, there wasn't a whole lot left in there to pull out. So yeah, just get with your group and decide which those criteria you're gonna draw. And Evan's just coming in, so somebody in Evan's group will come in on that. Whenever the groups meet later. So. Hopefully that'll ease up the load as we get in the rush here at the end. So, yeah, I guess we'll just starting an example project here. Start a new project. I'm doing a quick small one, and then we'll do a second one to reinforce all this stuff. And I don't think it's going to take very long. Create a new project. I'll call this VR test. There's only one that exists. Oh, I already made one of those. I'll call it virtual. I don't think that name's okay. That name's available. For VR, it does need to be in compatibility mode. The desktop mode won't work. There's different types of headsets, and the ones I have in here are Quest 2 headsets. I guess I can grab that out here. So we'll look at doing it for the Quest 2. The Steam headset, if anybody has a Steam headset, it has a nice advantage when you can debug right on the Steam headset from Godot. Some people might be able to on the Meta headsets, whether Quest 2 or Quest 3, or I've seen a couple knockoffs that are very obviously the exact same thing as the Metas, just for like $90 to $120 range. I haven't tried them. I don't know how well they work, but unlike some of those cheap Chinese wholesale shops, they have some very obvious Quest 2 knockoffs. The reason I can't plug it up directly to this computer is on a Steam headset, it uses the headset's GPU. But for some reason, the way the Meta is going to set up, when you plug it up and sync it up with a computer, it uses the computer's GPU, and the computer, it has to have a GPU big enough to run both the computer and the headset at once. So it does take a fairly decent sized GPU to plug up the Quest headset. In general, though, after the debugging's done, even if you're on a nice gaming computer and can plug up and debug right there, and this is consistent for the other major game engines as well. Once it's done, you have to side load it onto the headset. So it since I can't plug up directly to test and debug the game, I kind of have to do a build for it and then upload that. They're all very, very similar, whatever game engine we're on. There's just a few years ago, the lack of the pandemic really, uh, Meta had something like 43,000 work on standardizing VR. So they got standardize it, so in all the game engines like in Godot, they just brought that stuff in and added it to their object format. And the other game engines did the same thing. So it follows suit with what the game engine normally does. And most of the stuff happens in the background. I'm sort of seeing here, just a little world. And add to that a static one, something we can stand on. And like we'll have a logical body, then we'll need a graphical body, so we'll put a mesh on there and then a glitter shape. And this is just gonna be a flat run this time. We'll come back and after we talk about the once, we'll come back and do a second one. So for the ground, I'm just gonna use a big plane, some area to stand on. So if we create a new plane mesh, probably bigger than 2 by 2 meters. I'll go with like 25 by 25. And throw in a material to get us just basic material to give it a green color, like we're standing on grass or something. So give us some sort of line to stand on. Oh yeah, and then the glitter shape is just going to be a planar shape. Oh wait, we don't have planes, and I don't know what I was thinking of. We do a box shape. We can just set it for the same size. So in the X and Z direction, be 25 by 25, and in the Y direction, it can be really thin, 0.2 or something. That way it wraps around that plane. Nothing new there. Our VR stuff, should I do it as a separate scene? Yeah, I'll do it as a separate scene. So let's save this one. There's the world we're going to, and as always, might need to add, so we'll be able to see stuff, probably want to add in a light and environment. I'll just use those default ones. And then I'll put the player on the new, in a new scene. And if you start searching for XR, that's what all of them are going to be called. Oh, actually, before we add this, I need to bring in a tool set. The default for Godot is to go with the Steam headset. And if we want to use a Meta headset instead, we just have to install this package. We don't actually do anything about it. It's all stuff that happens in the background. But when we bring this in, it will change those default settings from Steam to the Meta headset. If you just search for Meta, it's the Godot Meta Toolkit. And then download and install that like any plugin. It's good to do it first, but if you forget, like I almost did a minute ago, you can do it at any point in time. It doesn't really take effect until till you compile the game for a run or something like that. So all the nodes related to VR start with XR. So there's just a basic XR node that doesn't really have any extra features built into it. Anchor ties things. I forget what it is. It's a specific point. So, like the teleporting, instead of walking around, because walking around in VR tends to give a lot of people motion sickness. So we just set anchor points and then we jump between those points, teleport between them, and then that helps with some of the motion sickness. The controller 3D will controller 3D are obviously for the controllers. We're probably usually going to set up two of them, and really all we have to set is whether the left or right hand. So what tell it which knows which. Um, Body modifiers are uh, the avatar. When we have that, we'll probably skip that part today. Uh, Different hand modifiers. So if you don't want to use the hand, if you don't want to use the controllers, you just use the hand objects. And there's an XR camera 3D, the face modifier again for the avatar stuff, and XR Origin 3D. So the XR Origin 3D is what we want to be our root node or somewhere near the root node. All of the other XR stuff has to be a child of this one. So start with an XR Origin, and you'll see this the warnings. It has to have at least a camera because we can't see things without a camera. So I'll add that in there. Make sure you add the XR camera, not the camera 3D. Personally, I like to just come over here and raise that camera up to about what the eye level would be in a normal situation. 6 feet is about 1.8 meters. So that's how tall I am. So I usually go with just a little bit less than that. Uh, but if you know how tall you are in meters, just kind of where your eyes would be, and that way the vision all looks like it's originating from the correct spot. Um, We'll go ahead and add in a couple controllers for left hand and right hand. Um, I got one of them left, one of them right. Probably no surprises there. I'll move in a moment, but see a little warning. No tracker name is set, so we do have to come over here in the inspector panel where it says tracker and choose what it's tracking. Uh, is this controller tracking the head, the left hand, the right hand? That one's tracking the left hand. That one's tracking the right hand. And probably want one to track the head as well. So add another controller in there and make the camera a child of that. Set that for head tracking. Good. And you see from the drop down list there, the options we have. Oh, can't make that can't put the camera as a child of that. I made all the warnings come back. So the camera has to directly be a child of the origin. I just thought it would make sense that if it was from the position, it would be with the head, but it should turn, and we can move that head to about the same spot. I'll move it up like 1.6. They're at the same spot as the camera. Be nice if we could see the left and right hand, so might want to add some sort of mesh. mesh instance as a child of each of the hands. I guess for the purpose here, I'll just put a cube on one of them. A much smaller cube than that. 0.15, 0.15, 0.1. And on the other one, I'll put a sphere. That way we're seeing something. So it's about the same size. Some nice small mesh as a placeholder. Then might want to move those into position. So I guess the hand's going to be about 1.1 meter up, negative 0.5, and negative 0.5. What's that look like if I go to the camera and check for you? It could be a little bit further. Uh, there we go. That way we can kind of see our hand move, put a material on it, so that we know it's going to show. And I'll copy that color to put in the other hand. New material. So this is all stuff we've seen before, right? And then move this into place. We should be able to kind of see. There we go. So little placeholders for our hands. So when we load that onto the headset and start moving the controllers around, it'll follow that. And then the head will take care of tracking our movements and determining which direction we need to face in the world. What's this? Yeah, still gonna do some configuration settings. But hopefully that looks very familiar, right? The only thing that's really changed is which nodes we're using, but it follows suit with what the engine does, and that's the way all of them are set up. The standardized libraries go in the background, and they just got worked into all of our game engines. Basically the thing with what fits in that particular game engine. So then we can come over and put that in the scene. Might want something to look at, so I'm going to add a couple meshes around. There's something going on. So do like a box mesh, snap on, for example, and move it somewhere over into the scene for us to look at. And in other settings, actually probably have it with things we can interact with. The interaction is similar to what we've seen elsewhere. We just set up a collision shapes and make sure you use an XR node as a parent for it. So, and all that stuff should just work almost as expected. Maybe another thing we can look at, add another mesh instance. Put a big prism here somewhere. Give it. Maybe one more. so that when we turn around, we can see other stuff. Um, I'm a big cylinder. That'll work. That way there's stuff in the world to see when we look around and things like that. Um, hopefully all of that seems straightforward. The big thing here is all in the settings that we need to work with. And then when we go to actually build it, to put it on there, we have to do what's called a Gradle build. Has anybody heard of that, encountered that before? It's our organizations, how the project files are organized and uh, and managed and kept up to date. So some automated processes, a lot of that stuff, a lot of the really boring type of coding, task oriented coding, like go to this location and write this file, go to this location and add this line to a certain file, setting up all the configuration files and very, very tedious, boring coded, but type of coding, but it's a necessary thing and it's also something that can be automated really easily. Gradle is one of the more popular ways of doing that, setting up the project stuff. Um, but it's all one that's always kept up to date, so we have to connect to the latest repository, download all the stuff we need, uh, and um, and it caches and build a cache on our local machine to do it. But all of that stuff adds a lot of overhead. So what they did in Godot, instead of adding it to their engine, because that would have made the engine like 3 times bigger, and they didn't want to do it because one of the things about Godot is it's going to run on just about any computer out there. So what they did for they just since other software will do Gradle builds and cache stuff locally, uh, they just want the other software to do that and to build the Gradle cache. So we just have to build a project and something that'll do it. Android Studio is the preferred one. Did y'all see that announcement I sent out this morning? And I edited right. I had to come back and edit right before class because I forgot one of them. The standard, the standardization part was you built using OpenJDK, so we need to have OpenJDK installed to build when we do the build. Android Studio is very large, oftentimes somewhat difficult to work with software, but very well powerful software. It just takes a lot of learning. It can be a bit overwhelming. I'll put a link there. And then also we'll need OpenJDK 17. So it's Java development kit, but the open source version. We're currently on 21, but we just need to have 17 installed in when our game compiles for that final build is going to needs to use things from that. So make sure you download and install. Just run the installer for your whatever system you're on. And same thing with Android Studio, just download and run the installer. And then this other one is for side loading. We'll talk about that in a moment. So I already have them installed on my system. So what we have to do with Android Studio, should have it, there it is. We just have to build a project one time. It doesn't even have to be, like we don't have to make a project. There's a default template project, a stronger spot. So if we just go to the starter files for a project and build it, it will set up the cache on our local machine with all the latest information from the Gradle repository. And then Godot will use that. So, once this opens, actually, I could close it. Like so many IDEs, it opens to the last project that was open. So let me go to a new one. Eventually. Oh. New project. And when you first start, you'll see this, this is the screen where you'll see normally start at if there's not one already open. You can just do an empty activity. So just start a new empty activity. You have to give it some sort of package name. There's some standards that has to be globally unique. So what the standard is to take the website and put that in backwards. So kind of like this. So on the website, you have mypage.com/application for wherever you're going to have documentation on it or something. So we just put that in backwards, like com.mysite.application name, and come up with something that is globally unique amongst all programmers. So that's kind of what was settled on, and it does have to be all lowercase. Choose the API version. All of this stuff will be fine. Just go with the default settings. When you hit finish, it'll create that project for you. Takes a couple minutes. And then once it's, there we go. I guess I was still looking at the old project. Because the one that was open before was just that empty project. We just have to do this to get all of the information from the greater repository about how to do a final build on a game. I'm gonna click the little hammer here so we can see the stuff here. You can see it's still doing something. Feels like it's been more than 47 seconds here. But it's actually building the project. I'm gonna, yeah, I think I'll leave this going because it does take a moment. We don't want to just sit here and watch meters. Oops. So I'm going back over to Godot, and in our editor settings, we do have to set up a couple things. We have to let it know where OpenJDK is. I think it's in editor settings. Okay, yes. So if you go to editor settings and all the way down at the bottom under export and choose Android, after you install Android Studio, Godot should find all of those things where Android Studios ended up. It's probably best to keep it in the default settings. That way, Godot basically already knows where to look. But if you change and do that stuff somewhere else, you'll need to change that. And then the Java SDK path, you just want to browse and point to where you installed OpenJDK, which it's already pointed. You can see it's already on this computer, but it should be under Program Files, folder called Microsoft, and then JDK. If you're on a Linux, it'll be in a similar place in your applications. Then obviously the file's called back there, and then you'll see JDK. Same thing, on Linux. So just make sure you point to that. And that if you use for the key stores and all of that, because we do have to have it signed. That's something else. The Android Studio gives us a signature, and we can't load it onto headsets without that signature. So just point to that right software. And then in the project settings, we have some XR stuff that we can work with. And I'm going to check that build to see how well that's coming. Where are we? Yeah, it has to check a whole lot of stuff, so it'll take it a moment to do that. Go back to under the general tab, if you scroll down a little, you'll see an option for XR. So we're going to go to the Open XR tab, and obviously enable it first off. We're going to use the head-mounted, just a basic headset, the head-mounted one. Make sure view configuration is set to stereo. It should be by default, at least from 4.3, 4.3 on. It should be set to stereo, but make sure you have that. These headsets do have two separate screens. That's why you have to have a powerful GPU. Because for some reason, the Meta one is going to use the computer's GPU when you plug it up. So it has to run both devices, and the headset has two screens on it. So it needs a fairly large GPU. A lot of the settings are probably okay. The blend, yeah, like always, you can hover over different things, see what they are. Most of your default settings are okay. You probably want to turn on hand tracking. It can be useful. That's so that you can do it without the controllers. Like you look at your palm and that pulls up the menu, or you like pinch and that'll click on things. That can be useful. Eye gaze interaction. Most of these are probably okay in the default settings. Just make sure you enable it and set the view configuration to stereo. And then do have to save it, do have to restart the project. So if you do that, hit the save and restart. Oh, actually, there's one more. We need to go to the shaders tab too. If you haven't hit save and restart, if you're following along, if you go to the shaders tab, there's only one checkbox on that tab, and we need to check that box. I'll have to do it after the project restarts, which is going slow because Android Studio is still doing stuff. Oh, it looks like it's moving along nicely now, though. Yeah, so see all this stuff that is downloading? That's stuff that's been updated since 2 weeks ago, the last time I did it on this computer. So all the stuff that's been updated in the last 2 weeks on the repository. And you can see it took 6 minutes, 18 seconds. So it does take a moment to get through. And yeah, it still looks like it's still gonna come. It didn't seem to restart. I clicked the save and restart, but it looks like it just shut down. So I'm starting again. Oh, I just got impatient. which I think it's going slower than normal because I've got the Zoom call going. Android Studio is doing a bunch of stuff. Okay, finally finished, went to the green check, so once it builds, that's all we need that to do. Everything else will be is ready to go. So we can just close out of that. And then maybe that'll make this one faster. Oh. Close out of that one. Oh, had 2 Android Studios going. That's probably what was slowing everything down. There we go. Now let's go back in the project this way. Oh, probably could have talked about that box if we hadn't seen it in class. Did you all see that box that popped up? Has anybody seen that? It just said that the last time this project ran, it crashed. So there's an option to edit normally or edit in safe mode. Depending on what's going on, you might want to edit in safe mode. I'm pretty sure that crash was because Android Studio was using all the CPU. But yeah, we still got this one warning because I forgot to change the other setting. So instead of materials with VR stuff, we have to use shaders for everything. We can just put together simple materials and the headset's going to handle the dynamic shader part of it. But you just have to go in there and make sure you hit that box. And it looks like those other changes went through. I guess I only made the 2 changes. But yeah, shaders is a big change to what the engine's doing. So we do have to, where we're using only shaders and no materials, do have to save and restart for that. Just like we have to save and restart for the stereo mode instead of just a single screen. So the Android Studio one seems like a lot. It's big, huge software. You saw there, it takes like 6 minutes to do the Gradle build. But you just have to do that one time. We don't necessarily always have to be on the latest, most up-to-date version. But probably want to do it every few months or so. Every 6 months or so, redo it just in case there's been some big updates in there. Okay, so it looks like all the warnings went away and stuff. Hey, run it. We can't really do anything at this point because it's set up. It tried to look for a headset, and by default, it's going to look for a Steam headset. If I had a nice, powerful GPU on here, I could plug up, just get a USB-C cable and plug up, and it would detect the other one. But this computer doesn't have a GPU big enough to run the meta one, so it's just going to open in regular mode and see what our world looks like. But we don't have any way to control anything. Right? See our hands sitting there, and then that stuff, and I think there's another mesh behind this, something to look at, but we need to actually put it on the headset in order to do that. So to put it on the headset, it's a 2-part process. We have to do what's called side loading on the headset, and that's what that other app in there was for. But there's lots of them out there. Bug Checker is one I've been using for a while. Really happy with it. I've done a couple other things. I put some so CX File Explorer is can be nice. CX File Explorer. I use this for a couple years. This is a file explorer that has an installer on it. So with this, we can just plug up to our computer and copy the files over. just copying files between the devices. And then when we click on the APK, that's Android package, that's the single file that's ready to install. When we click on it from this file explorer, it'll do that. But I've gone back to the side loading because with the headsets, we always have to have a mobile device to sync with it for other reasons. But you'll just want to install that on an Android device. So to upload to either a Meta Quest or a Steam device or one of the ones that follows the XR standards, it does have to be uploaded from an Android device. So if you're an iPhone user, you might have to find a Android phone from a friend or something. Or Android tablets are really, really cheap. You can get Android tablets for like $20. Not great tablets, but tablets. And then what that software does, let's see, where's my Zoom stuff? Share for a moment, and then I'll turn the camera on here. Little open the lens. Maybe it's easiest just to put this in front of the camera here. I don't know if it's going to show up on if y'all can see it or not. Has a bunch of controls and stuff, and on one of these tabs, the third one, when that's plugged up with a headset, we will see all of the files on the headset and all the apps and stuff, and then the uninstall button is here on the tablet. It makes it's actually a lot easier to work with than the trying to click with the controllers, because then you have to go to like a keyboard, and this is why I stopped using that file explorer one, and like yeah, click on each letter individually. They finally added swipe text. That makes it a little bit quicker, but it really slowed things down. So having a list of all the apps here just on a tap in your hand is a lot easier to install and uninstall stuff. That's what this is for. But there's alternate ways to get it on there. We just have to do some sort of site. And the Apple VR is like the rest of Apple stuff. You have to be a registered Apple developer. You have to write the code on a Mac and pay to be a registered Apple developer in order to write anything and upload it to the Apple headset. Kind of like Apple always is. Same thing for iOS development, which I'm going to start running that class here at Sellersburg before long. I just have to figure out where to get money to fill up this room with Macs, or get enough Macs to teach the class with it. But it has to be written on a Mac computer, and you have to pay to be a registered Apple developer, or it's in my budget for next year. I pay for a class full of people to be registered Apple developers, buy a bunch of licenses for that. So Apple has extra restrictions, but for Steam and Meta, those are the two big ones. And other things that use OpenXR, which use the Android device. And BugJugger is a really good side loading app. I've been happy with it, at least. There's lots of alternatives though. But once we're finally ready to we have our game, we think it's ready to run. We've had Android Studio build a Gradle project once, so we have a local cache of the current Gradle repository. And Android Studio would have set up a key store so we have our signature so we can sign the app when we make it. So the security functionality on the headsets isn't going to reject it, saying this was made by an unknown programmer, so not gonna run it. So we have all that stuff, but now we just need to do the build. So project and export, and we'll need an Android build. So we choose Android, and you'll see it. This message is going to show up because this happens at the project level. We need to import the stuff for that. And use Gradle build must be entered to use the plugins. Yeah, they have this one that's highlighted here. We have a Gradle build. We have to use that for OpenXR. Android template's not installed in the project. Install it from the project menu. So this message, I'll close this and come back over here under project. In our main menu, so there's the install Android build template. So we have to get all that Android build stuff. And that, like those other two things, that goes with the project itself. So once that's installed, I can export. All the error messages have gone away. As we go through here, it needs to know where the key store is and all that, but the editor already picked up where Studio picked up the key store. So I usually just leave this one blank, and it will. If this field is blank, it's going to go back to the editor settings and go to grab it from there. Enter version numbers, all stuff like that. Have the unique package name, and then whatever the game name is. If we just leave it blank, it's going to call it the same thing. So I called the game the project virtual, so it's just going to call it virtual. And then for XR mode, I think we'd be okay either way here. Since we used OpenXR, we'll switch that to OpenXR. I think we would be okay with regular actually, and this, at least in this simple setup. And then if your app needs permission, so kind of like we're used to on our phones, right? Do you need to access the camera? Do you need to access the tracking? The camera would be more for if we wanted to do augmented or extended reality on the headset. We need to access the camera so that we can see the world around us. Yeah. Oh, and when you hit the checkbox, that's going to make that box pop up whenever someone puts the headset on when it opens the app. Does this app have your permission to use the microphone? Does this app have permission to use the body tracking stuff, all of that? You want it to be allowed to make calls, any of those things. But once all the settings are done, right, there's a long list of those checkboxes. Down at the bottom, there's that meta toolkit that we've downloaded. Make sure you click the checkbox for that. And then just export the project. Looks like it's exporting right in the project, so I'll just put it there. And then we have to wait for the builder. It shouldn't take too long. Well, that's going on real quick. I have to make sure the headset's connected to the Wi-Fi. It's like so many things, it doesn't, it didn't like where I was standing. It doesn't, some of the functionality doesn't seem to want to work unless we're connected to the internet. Get that great. That's right. Okay. I use the guest Wi-Fi here at school on those, and that little checkbox we have to hit is like really, really little on the browser on those things. Yeah, usually it crashes pretty quick. One of the reasons Gradle is really popular is it does like a preview of the build. That's part of the way it starts. So it does a preview. So it crashes really, really quick. And then you're not waiting 10 minutes for all this stuff to happen. So once it starts going along, it's usually a pretty good that it's going to work. Versus Maven is another very popular build configuration stuff. It just starts running immediately, so it might run for 6-7 minutes, and then you hit a crash unexpectedly. So, all right, so that export's finished. We come over to where that's at. I'm not gonna have a good way to share the screen. So the next couple steps, there should be an .apk file here somewhere. Oh, there it is. So that virtual.apk, we just need to move that over to the tablet or phone that has the sideline app on it. And then from there, we can install it on the headset. Okay. Okay. USB-C to C, and I didn't see the USB-C on my laptop. So copy that over to this tablet somewhere. Easy to find. I'll just put it in downloads. Delete the other stuff. Paste that in downloads. Okay, and then I could probably stop that screen share. Once it's on the tablet, you can just side load it onto the headset. I'll kind of hold it in front of the camera again here in a minute so you can hopefully see what's going on with that. I probably have to give it permission. There we go. Make sure you do the normal give it permissions and stuff. Um, so you can see now, that page that was blank a moment ago has all of the apps from the headset. So with our installers and install uninstall button is on the tablet that way. That's what side loading is nice. There's also one called Side Quest that runs on your regular computer. But because of how the headsets, because of how many design your headsets, it always has to be synced to a Android device anyway. Um, or at least once it has to sync to an Android device. So then there's a little plus sign in the bottom, so we just hit that to add a new one, and it's like three options. Try to put it on the laptop camera, which probably isn't showing up on the recording. Uh, then just select from an APK file and hit OK, then upload that file that you just copied over from the regular computer. Oops. And then it little thing spinning for a second. Shouldn't take it too long. Hopefully it won't take too long. Yeah, you see there's a lot of waiting in this process. And this is basic, unless you have a pretty powerful gaming computer, this is basically what you have to do to debug these. And no matter where you work, where you live, I can say with fair certainty that it's there's somebody, a museum near you that wants some virtual reality stuff built. And they'll have lots and lots of materials to make sure it's all accurate and everything. Make sure it's installed. Oh, yeah. So now if I put this back by the camera, you'll see on this list, one of those, there's that one that has the Godot icon. It's also where the installer is and everything. And a little run button. So I can also start it from here. I think it should be starting. Oh, well, I'm getting an error message now. It said OpenXR was requested but failed to start. So I guess I should have done a regular, set the build to regular. A repetitive process. Do you want to play with this while I redo some of those steps? Have you ever used VR before? Okay. You can kind of see what's on there. That just to give an error message, so it's probably a good example that it makes the debugging process very slow at times because we have to keep coming back and redoing it. So project. Most of the settings should still be saved in the project, but options. Overlooking that option. Fine. Turn off that toolkit for now. I'll turn it back on in a moment because that's probably why I'm not having that option. There it is. Switch that back to regular. And then I'll go turn on that toolkit. Export project and overwrite the previous one. And you can see it makes for a very slow debugging process and we have to keep coming in and redoing. Go through that whole process every time we want to do it. We built a little bit quicker that time. You can see like the previous version, the previously cached version of the build was still valid, so it zipped right through with no trouble. And yeah, then that same process again, but it's coming on 2:15. So probably about time for a break, and then that's like all the steps and stuff. I guess I'll go ahead and finish that out, put it on the headset, make sure that was the setting that changed. And then the uninstaller is also on that side looking thing. But it's a popular thing these days, and museums are paying to have recreations made. So it's a way to start making money with this skill set pretty quick. So I wanted to include that. And yeah, then it's coming on the time we would normally take a break. But like I said earlier, at this point in the semester, y'all are probably more interested in ample time to work on the projects, the group project, and then the final project coming up soon. So do y'all want to split up into breakout rooms, talk to your group members? I see a head nod here in the classroom. So we can do that because yeah, and then to ease the load, you take a look at the rubric and you can draw a couple of the criteria for both the group project and the final project. So that you don't have to have quite as much in there because we do have a heavy load. It's coming on near the end, and hopefully that'll help make it a little bit easier. But get with your group and decide which 4 criteria on the rubric you're going to work on, which ones you're going to draw. And when you go to submit it, make sure you tell me which ones you dropped, and then I'll just automatically check those boxes in the rubric so that you'll get full points. Same thing on final, only it's do 7 of the criteria. There's currently 11, so dropping 3 from this group project and 4 from the final project, and hopefully make it a little bit easier on you. So let's set up the breakout rooms, and yeah, you might be a good time to take a break if you want to grab a drink of water or something, and then maybe debrief. But I'm going to stop the recording, and then I'll redo that VR thing. I'm kind of glad that didn't work, so you can see how slow the process is. Right? There was an error message, and we have to completely build it, uninstall it from all the different all 3 devices it was used on, and then reinstall it. So a bit of a time-consuming thing when debugging, but it not that bad. So I'm going to stop recording and set up breakout rooms.